The Guild is Maximum Lawyers' community of legal entrepreneurs who are taking their businesses and lives to the next level. As a Guild member, you'll build relationships, be held accountable, and learn strategies specifically designed to get you unstuck and accelerate your plan for growth. Members are also granted exclusive access to masterminds hosted around the country. Our next event is coming up, and we're heading to Scottsdale, Arizona. There's something truly magical about the power of these in-person connections where real-time breakthroughs happen. Picture this. You're surrounded by like-minded law firm owners tackling your business and mindset challenges together. The energy is electric, the insights are transformative, and the results are game-changing. Investing in yourself is the best decision you'll ever make. The knowledge, strategies, and breakthroughs you'll gain are priceless assets that will supercharge your practice and propel you forward. Join the Guild and secure your ticket to Scottsdale at the best possible price by visiting maxlawevents.com.
Hey, Josh Zieglowsky here with ERC Specialists. I'm on the Maximum Lawyer podcast. Really excited about this.
So we just had on Josh Zieglowsky. It was something else having him on. I mean, you said at the end of the episode that it's not often that we have people on who can help our listeners make money. I would say also that it's not often that we have people on the show where I'm like, holy shit, like, did we miss something? Like, I mean, it does sound too good to be true, but it also sounds legit. So I think that this is something that every one of us is going to have to inquire. And I was sort of giggling to myself when you said, I don't know that we really have had supply chain breakage in the personal injury space. And I was like, all you guys bitched about for a year and a half was that your courts were closed. You clearly had
that's true.
The disruption.
Well, it's funny. I think a lot of us did really well during the pandemic, and like you don't really. I didn't really think about the courts, but you're so true. You're absolutely right. And I remember it was 2 days before the end of the year, so it was December 29th, right? And I got a call from this guy who had been trying to sell me something. We were both in this magazine together, and he was trying to sell me like an ad space and the ad sheet in Columbia. I guess I kind of gave away kind of who he is, but yeah, he left me his voicemail. I thought he was trying to sell me something. It was about ERC. And I thought he wasn't trying to sell me anything. He was just trying to tell me about it because he was like, he was legitimately reaching out and being a nice person, believing me, hey, but he told me the deadline was the 31st. So I didn't have enough time to get everything done before the 31st. So I just didn't do it. And so he was wrong too. Like seems like there's so much misinformation about this. It's good that there's a company, and frankly, given 15% to get a bunch of extra money, it's fine with me. I'll do it in a heartbeat.
Well, I mean, first of all, that's how you, I mean, you get twice that, if not more, right? So
that's true, yeah.
So if anybody should understand the model, it's you. It's also, it's so great, Dan Kennedy, Dean Jackson stuff of, risk reversal. There's what's the downside other than the time you spend filling out the paperwork? I'm just trying to rack my brain. I mean, I guess with COVID, with closures and immigration going from taking 6 months to handle a case to handle. Yeah. So I could definitely make arguments that I've had to carry cases a lot longer and pay more payroll because USCIS and the State Department are so behind, and they say it all the time because of COVID. So I could attach press releases and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to talk to our team about doing this today.
Yeah, as am I, because you're talking about a significant amount of money back into the firm. So really good stuff. Hopefully you enjoy it. Love to hear feedback from people that have gone through this. So listen up.
Run your law firm the right way. This is the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. Your hosts, Jim Hacking and Tyson Mutrux. Let's partner up and maximize your firm. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrux. What's up, Jimmy?
Oh, Tyson, you know how it is. It's been hotter than Hades around here lately, and lots of activity, lots of running around. I'm sure you're doing a lot with your kids as well.
Yeah, and it's going to be in the hundreds this week, which is great. Although it feels nice today. We're going to get a little rain, but it's been kind of nutty.
Well, you want to go ahead and introduce our guest?
Absolutely. So today we have Josh Zieglowsky. He's been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years. His primary focus is investing in residential and commercial real estate. Josh's key expertise includes asset and portfolio management, broker relations, investor and client relations, banking relations, economic and demographic trends, market analysis, due diligence oversight, financing oversight, acquisition and disposition strategies, transaction oversight, and business development. Josh, that was a tongue twister. Welcome to the show.
Just to name a few.
Just to name a few. There's more to the bio, but I wasn't going to go through the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was like an obstacle course. But welcome, Josh.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great, Josh. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started and then maybe work towards what ERC Specialists is?
Yeah. So, I mean, like you mentioned, my background is real estate, commercial and residential real estate, commercial mostly in the last 6-7 years. But about 4 years ago, I started being entrepreneurish. Like what I mean by that is starting to do other businesses outside of real estate. And come to find out, a couple of years ago, I started a company in oil. And I don't know if you guys remember, but price per barrel of oil in 2020 one day was negative $30 a barrel. And so with that, our oil business out of Wyoming, I'm out of Utah, was suffering. And so I was trying to find extra stimulus money for my business to help combat the pandemic. And I did PPP number 1, number 2, state of Wyoming grant that was forgiven. And come to find out, I found this another stimulus called ERC, stands for Employee Retention Credit, where you can get up to $26,000 per W-2 employee. And being that it's from the Treasury Department, aka the IRS, I reached out to my CPA and he told me, hey, you know what? This is a payroll type of situation and 95% of CPAs don't do payroll. So talk to a payroll company. Talk to a couple of payroll companies and they don't amend 941s. And so there was like this weird gray area, almost too good to be true. And I did the who, not how mentality of, that book, Who, Not How, got the right who's. And we went from 6 partners, now a little under 190 employees now in about 14 months.
Wow. So explain to us what ERC is, because we both have employees and most of the people listening to this podcast have lots of employees. So what is the program and how can it help us?
Yeah. And let me explain the program kind of in 2 parts. What I mean by that is how it started and what it is now, because it's 2 different ways, because President Biden and the administration has amended this 5 different times. Where it started is, did you have a shutdown in your business? Are you under 500 employees? Did you have a 20% revenue loss? Well, people that had losses, we were able to help them. And that's the way we started. What I called when the barn door went wide open with this is about November of 2021, because a lot of people would say, man, I made so much money in 21 that I definitely don't qualify. And we'd always tell them, at least put your 941s in, let's see. And sometimes we'd find maybe a quarter or 2, because it's over a 6-quarter period that they did qualify. But when President Biden amended it and said, did you have 500 employees or less? And then if the answer is yes, and these are W-2, this isn't a sole proprietor, but the next question is, did you have a 20% revenue loss? Or have you had a partial or full shutdown? Or have you had a supply chain disruption to your business? And the supply chain is when even Forbes did an article that 70-80% of businesses qualify for this now, yet 7 out of 10 business owners don't even know about it. And so this is an absolute rebate, what I call rebate, even though they call the credit. And the reason why they call the credit is it's a glorified grant. In a grant, you have to specify what you're using the money for. Just like PPP, it was a loan that was forgiven later and you had to disclose what you're using the money for. It's forgiven the day you get it, and you can use it for whatever you want in your business.
This is incredible. I have heard about this. I, however, thought that we are still stuck in the first part of it. Yeah, I did not know. I was not aware there was the second part that was available to us. So I do personal injury. I'm going to ask a very specific question to this. So I do personal injury, and where would the supply chain? Where could I look for the supply chain disruption in that? Could it be, because I did have a lot of clients that they were not unable to go get treatment during certain times because of this. Would that be considered a supply chain disruption?
Yeah. I mean, I've had actually an attorney firm tell me, this was several months ago, that, hey, you know what? Courthouses were shut down. That's my supply. And I wasn't able to even go to courthouses and conduct business. And, even if they had a profit of business, they weren't able to conduct another part of their business, which, was more that it has to be more than a 10% difference in their business. But on our website, ercspecialist.com, we have a survey. It takes 5 or 10 minutes. We don't charge anything up front for this. Like you talk about personal injury, you'll understand this. Because this was quote unquote too good to be true, we decided, hey, let's not charge up front. We'll charge 15% of what they get when they get the money. And so we actually wait until they get the money. And because it does take 6 to 8 months for the IRS to send out the money, and that's their backlog. If the IRS wants money from you, they'll come get it tomorrow, right? So, but there is a backlog with this on the IRS of 6 to 8 months. And so, coming back to your original question on supply chain is on our website, that takes about 5 or 10 minutes per EIN to go through it. And we ask specifically, did you have supply chain? Who's your supplier? Tell us more about that. And then we actually dissect it to make sure it's a substantiation to use for a claim for the program. And one thing to add what you're saying too, you mentioned like, hey, I thought this was back when it was the 20% revenue loss. I meet so many people that, oh no, I already looked at this. I didn't qualify. You probably didn't qualify back then, but now you have a chance to qualify. So yeah.
So Josh, what's the standard for proof? Of course, the lawyers want to know, what's the standard of proof? What do we have to demonstrate to show the disruption? So
on our website, we ask specifically, did you have a, hour reduction? Did you have this? There's several different things. It really will, go step by step with you on the supply. Because when I first heard about this, I thought of a widget sitting at the port, right? That's what I call, thought of supply chain. But, when my supplier was shut down, and so I had to go to another supplier, even though I made more money, I had to go change my situation of my business and get a whole new supplier because of it. Because as a business owner, like if someone says, oh, you can't get lumber today, you don't just like, okay, well, can't get lumber until they're ready. No, you call another lumber company to help, your business survive, right? And so that's where the supply chain comes into place. And our website really goes over those specific questions because everyone's different. We then take it in, we take all their documents, and the documents are only their 941s, the quarterly reports, their PPP info, and a payroll report. And we tell them step by step on how to get that. Once we get that, it takes us 2 to 3 weeks to come back and say, okay, you're approved for $322,000.42. Do you want us to file? So they still have an opportunity to go somewhere else. 95% of people, move forward at that point though.
I just wonder, why was this talked about so much less than like EIDL and PPP?
PPP was a frenzy, and it was brokered through the banks. So after 3 or 4 days, SBA was backlogged. So then the administration at the time, Trump administration, said, hey, we need to get this money out to the masses. Let's call the banks and the fintech companies, and we'll pay them up to 5% commission for getting that PPP money out. I don't know if you guys remember, but all of a sudden, all these bankers started calling us like, hey, I can get you PPP money. Because they're getting commission from it. And it was so easy. You had money in 5 or 6 days. This isn't easy. And just recently, we were endorsed by the Texas Dental Association, the Utah CPA Association. I mean, CPAs, again, we have a lot of people. It's like, oh, my CPA looked at this. I didn't qualify. Well, it's kind of like in your situation, personal injury. If I'm going through a divorce, I'm trying to get someone that specializes in divorce, right? We specialize in this, and we're that easy liaison. We're not trying to do taxes. We don't want to do income taxes and take it away from CPAs. We want to work with them. We want to work with payroll companies and stuff like that. So that's where we kind of, we just surpassed $2.3 billion in credit with this. And we're seeing about 200 to 300 companies a day. And it's getting exciting.
Running your own practice can be scary, whether you're worried about where the next case will come from, feeling like you're losing control over your growing firm, or frustrated from being out of touch with everyone working under your license. The stress can be overwhelming. We will show you how to turn that fear into a driving force of clarity, focus, stability, and confidence that eliminates the roller coaster of guilt-ridden second-guessing and mistake-making to get you off that hamster wheel for good.
Maximum Lawyer in Minimum Time is a step-by-step playbook that shows you how to identify what your firm needs and how to proactively get it at every stage of the game, so you're prepped and excited for the inevitable growth that will follow. Name the lifestyle that you want, and we'll show you how to become a Maximum Lawyer in Minimum Time. Find out more by going to MaximumLawyer.com/course.
You're listening to the Maximum Lawyer podcast. Our guest today is Josh Zieglowsky. He's talking to us about a very exciting program. And I guess one question I have is, so this year, it looks like we're having to declare our PPP money as income on our tax returns, I think. I think that now that ship has come in. Is that going to be true with this EIC as well?
ERC, employee retention. Yeah. So yes. So we charge 15%. So let's say someone gets $100,000, they'll get 85, we'll get 15. They'll have to tell their tax professional, whether they use an EA, which is an expert advisor, a CPR, some sort of H&R Block, whatever they use, that they did receive $85,000. Now, how much do they tax on that? It's not like 30%. It's because they had payroll tax. Because in other words, the best way to describe this is, let's say you paid a W-2 wage to an employee of $10,000 one quarter. You can get up to $7,000 back because you paid them back in 21. So it's a rebate. So in other words, you've already paid those payroll taxes, right? So the tax is going to be very small, but there's also ways to combat that when they receive that money. So, but they will have to tell their tax professional, let's say they got the money in 22, they'll have to tell them, by April 15th, 23 or whatever it is.
All right. So Josh, let's say that I hire you. I want to hear more about the process. Let's say I hire you and you're my guy. You're my EA, right? What walk me through that process. What's that like?
Well, we're not your EA. So usually you'll have a bookkeeper or someone that does your payroll. Like literally we have people that use ADP that they kind of assume that why doesn't ADP do this type of thing? It's because, again, they don't amend 941s. We can amend this for 3 years. So because technically this program expired Q3 of 21, but we can amend it. And that's why, ADP, or even any payroll company, that's a software, right? They're giving you quarterly stuff. So to come back to your question is you'll get with that person or yourself, whoever does the payroll for the business. And basically they'll go on our website, ercspecialist.com. They'll hit begin qualifying. It takes them 5 or 10 minutes. Then once they finish that, they'll hit the upload page. They'll then upload documents. Once they upload documents and they hit submit, that's when a human comes into place. Outside of that, we're just trying to follow up with them basically on email, text, stuff like that. Then they're assigned to what we call our account specialists to make sure all the documents are correct. Then we'll send an email that says, hey, documents are correct. Or, hey, there's this one document that's blurry or your upload wasn't good. Can you redo this one? Once we say, hey, it's good to go, it takes us 3 weeks, up to 3 weeks. Sometimes it's a few days, but we always say 3 weeks. We come back and we say, you're approved for this amount of money. You then will DocuSign, Then we say, okay, you're good to go. We're going to file this within 72 hours. And then now we're on the waiting game from the IRS, waiting for the money and the checks. I say checks because, again, this is over a 6-quarter period. And I wish they would send an ACH, but it is 6 hard-looking checks from the Treasury Department, and it comes to the post office. And so we wait for those 6 checks. And then once we get those, we settle up, and then we're good to go.
Wow.
So I know that we've got some suspicious ass lawyers saying this is too good to be true. This guy is selling snake oil. How can the 3 of us encourage people to give this a shot?
Well, that's why, when we first started the first 30, 60 days, we had a fee schedule and we weren't having any luck because it's like, okay, well, send us $10,000 and in 8 months, checks will start coming. Like, I don't know, dude. But if you're willing to, wait until I get paid, I'm good, right? So, there's plenty of attorneys. We don't have a lot of them. I'd say, like I said, we're doing 300 a day, but let's say out of 100 files, I might have like a tax attorney, kind of get involved probably 1-2% of the time. But obviously what they could do, and it's not official yet, but I'm in Utah and I met with the Utah Attorney General to basically, because we're one of the fastest growing companies in the state, of getting an endorsement. And that will help. And with that, it's going to turn into, I can't name any names after this, but we have other people that we're talking to on the advisory board side that are on a national level that have been in the government side on the attorney side specifically. But, to answer your question, I think the best thing is we don't get paid until they get paid. And we're willing to wait for that. Now, we do have an option if people do want to pay up front and say, hey, I want a discount from the 15%. It is 10%, but that is their option. We do have about 10% of companies that opt for that, but we don't encourage it. We just kind of say, hey, it's there if you want it.
I was just curious. You mentioned the tax attorney getting involved. Like, what are some of the reasons why a tax attorney might get involved? Because to me, it seems like it's a pretty simple process, of filling out the paperwork and waiting for the check. So, like, why might a tax attorney get involved?
Sometimes they'll advise their client to get an opinion letter. They'll have to pay for that. That doesn't come. We don't pay for that at all. We have about 3 or 4 tax attorneys that we actually consult because we always want to stay ahead of any type of legality stuff with this. And so they're not a partner. They're not, they're just a straight consultant. We'll refer them off if they need a tax attorney to write an opinion letter. Usually that's anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000. And then we'll put that in their file if they want something like that. Sometimes we'll have someone that if they have over like $2-3 million of credit in their business, they'll opt for that or they'll kind of look into it or get that type of advisement. Because like the other thing I should mention is, nonprofits actually are qualified for this. 501As, 501Cs. We've done Baptist churches just recently, private schools in Hawaii that we're part of the Hawaiian Private School Association. So, or we're endorsed by them, I should say. So that said, that's why kind of a tax attorney will get involved sometimes.
So Josh, let me ask you this before we start to wrap things up. How can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you? I know you already mentioned the website, but I guess you can mention that again. But what other ways can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So our website, ercspecialist.com. We also have our email is support@ercspecialist.com. if it's something you need, or want to talk to me, like I said, we have a huge team in all different departments and stages throughout this. If it's something you want to talk to me, just put that in the request support site. And then, we can hop on the phone, or someone from my team can hop on the phone and go through this. But I would encourage, the website actually has quite a bit. We have videos. We even have video testimonials of people actually receiving checks. If you hit testimonial tab, we wanted to do that from the get-go, but we had to wait 8 months for those videos because the IRS took that long. Once we had that, we were really aggressive and saying, okay, let's get 10 videos of business owners talking about receiving their checks, going through the hard times of the pandemic, that type of thing. And so there's frequently asked questions that you can go through you can Google ERC credit and you go to the IRS website, and there's over 200 pages worth of documents. So if you're tired one night and you need extra sleep, maybe go through that website.
This is really, really cool. Yeah, Jimmy?
Tyson's going to wrap in just a minute, but I would like to ask you something a little bit different than what we've talked about, which is talk to us about being in such a fast growing company, because that's a hard thing to manage. It's almost like one of those horses that need to be broken so that you can ride them. I mean, what's it been like on this ride after you've found this niche?
It's funny because there's like a dozen stories I can tell you about that, right? I would say there was times that, we couldn't get back to people for 7 or 8 days on a simple question. Like, we were so backlogged because we weren't ready to hire people at this point. This was about November, December, when the tides were turning on the supply chain piece, where all of a sudden we got all these applications, and now we got to hurry, within 3 weeks, we hired something like 50 or 60 people. And now we're doing, training calls, and we're trying to tell them what we've been doing, working out of a basement, just like any other Amazon business or anything that's startup, right? And so then we started getting the right people in place, kind of that who, not how mentality. And we also knew, because we use a lot of banks send us a lot of business, because they did a lot of PPP loans. Fintech companies will send us business. And they told us, dude, it daily changes on a dime. So, and they told us that advice probably 6-8 months ago. So we always tell our employees kind of the who moved my cheese. Hey, today I could be telling you, you'll be doing this, but tomorrow you'll be in a whole different department. It could happen. So I need you to make sure you understand what I'm getting your cheese moved all the time. And so we kind of incorporate that, because it's all about expectations. You give them that expectation, then it's not a bad change. It's like, okay, well, sounds good because you guys told me that. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing we've kind of incorporated. But we've also nonstop always being consulted from business people that have expanded their business a ton to on the legal side, always making sure we're ahead of the game on this.
This is really just intriguing. I can't wait to look into it. So, Jim, I don't know if you've done this yet, but I'm going to totally look into this. I feel like I'm missing the boat, so I'm going to check this thing out. All right, let's wrap things up. Before I do, I want to remind everyone to join us in the big Facebook group. Just search Maximum Lawyer and choose the group, Maximum Lawyer. If you want a more high-level conversation, join us in the guild. Go to maxlawguild.com, maxlawguild.com. Great information being shared there on a daily basis. Also gives you access to Maximum Lawyer and Minimum Time, the course that Jimmy and I put together. All right, Jimmy, what's your hack of the week?
So my hack of the week is this. We spend a lot of time, all of us, creating a lot of content. And what we don't do necessarily is go back and watch how that content is performing. And we don't tweak the content that's underperforming to try to make it a little bit better. I think that if we spent a little bit more time optimizing our content, paying attention to analytics, and I'm talking specifically about web pages, if we spent more time making those better and watching the numbers, and we wouldn't necessarily have to create so much content. So it's good all around to prune your content and get rid of stuff that's underperforming, maybe combine pieces that make one longer, more substantive post, but just having lots of little underperforming web pages aren't going to do you much good.
That's very, very true. Look at the numbers, follow the data. For sure. Josh, we always ask our guests to give a tip or a hack of the week. Could be a book, could be a podcast, could be just more big picture stuff. Do you have a tip or a hack for us?
I think, because it's on my mind, is I've mentioned a couple of times the who, not how. Dan Sullivan and Hardy, I think it's Darren. I'm a huge fan of them. And what they did for me on that book, they just came out with another one called The Gap in the Gain. That's a really great one. I would say if you have not read or listened to Who Not How, like buy it in the next 5 minutes, because that was my advice. Someone gave me that advice 2 years ago. I was literally eating sushi at lunch and he said, "You haven't read that? You just seem like you already kind of do that, but you should read this." And I literally got my phone and I bought it on Audible right then. So I would do the same thing. That would be my advice.
Love it. Very, very good. So my tip, it's going to be kind of goofy to some people, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I always kind of joke about my uniform. I wear the exact same thing pretty much every single day. I wear the same pants, the same shirts, all the kind of, well, I've always struggled with my summer attire, my shorts and my polo, because they always kind of, some are too long, some are too baggy. But I finally found a shirt and shorts combo that works great for me for the summer. The point of it, though, is that I cannot tell you how much easier it makes my life by having this streamlined in the mornings. Whenever I just go to my closet, pull out the exact same thing. And it may seem goofy, but it saves me so much mental energy just having that stuff taken care of. When it comes to shoes, socks, underwear, all that, it's just taken care of. Everything's the same. You can mix up the colors, but I do recommend it. And you lose a little bit of the flavor. I don't have a cool shirt like Josh has right now, but it does make things a lot easier for me. So I know it seemed goofy, but I highly recommend it. It's actually really good. But Josh, it's rare that we have an episode where we can make our listeners so much more money just by doing a simple thing. And I'm hoping that you're going to be able to help a lot of our listeners. So thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it too, guys. Thanks. And you guys have a good weekend.
Thanks, Josh. And congratulations on your success. You should be really proud of yourself.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh. See you, bud.
Thanks for listening to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. To stay in contact with your host and to access more content, go to MaximumLawyer.com. Have a great week and catch you next time.